She showed up in daylight, a routine custody exchange, a driveway she believed was safe. Aisha Lorraine Fraser was unbuckling her daughters 8 and 11 when her estranged husband, former Judge Lance T. Mason, lunged from behind the house and stabbed her repeatedly. The children screamed. His sister, inside, called 911. When police arrived, Aisha was already gone. He tried to flee in her car, rammed a police cruiser, critically injured an officer, and still resisted arrest. Officers recovered the bloodstained knife believed to be the murder weapon. This wasn't random. It was the end of a long-documented pattern. A 2014 near-fatal assault that shattered bones and required reconstructive surgery. A 2-year sentence that turned into 9 months served. A protection order meant to keep her safe. A rehiring into city government despite his violent record. A system that extended privilege to a well-connected abuser and put the burden of survival back onto the woman he had already almost killed. Victim, Aisha Fraser. Beloved teacher, mother, the heartbeat of her school. Perpetrator, Lance Mason, Harvard-educated lawyer, former state legislator, former assistant prosecutor, former judge. If you believe safety should never depend on status or connections, tap like so this story is prioritized, and more people see it when it matters most. In this episode, you'll see how the warnings piled up long before the driveway ambush. You'll learn what prosecutors said about planning and motive. You'll hear how the community responded, what the court decided, and how Aisha's law became a rallying point for reform. And you'll leave with practical takeaways for safety planning during separation, the most dangerous time, and for documenting systemic failures so institutions can't look away. From an assault that should have changed everything to a murder that finally did. This is the case of Aisha Lorraine Fraser. Welcome to the Crime Anatomy. We uncover the real stories behind the nation's most disturbing cases. If stories like this matter to you, consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you never miss an episode.
Aisha needed help, and Aisha was asking for help. And the persons and authorities and judicial system that could have helped her did not.
It's a story we've been following for years since family members say Aisha Fraser was failed by the system.
The best that we can do is to learn from the failures that we have.
The Shaker Heights mother and beloved teacher murdered by her ex-husband in 2018.
Aisha Lorraine Fraser was known first for her warmth. She grew up in Cleveland. She graduated from Hathaway Brown School, earned degrees from John Carroll University and Baldwin Wallace University, and poured her talent into a 6th grade classroom at Woodbury Elementary in Shaker Heights, teaching history and math. Colleagues called her compassionate and driven. She decorated her classroom with affirmations that told struggling students they mattered. She was the teacher parents wanted for their children and the colleague who made a school feel like a community. Her defining identity was motherhood. Friends recalled that her pride and priority were her daughters. She gave them structure, stability, and a model of resilience. In the years after the 2014 assault, as she navigated trauma and physical recovery, including reconstruction after shattered orbital bone, she still showed up for students and safeguarded her girls' connection with their father through court-ordered, structured contact. It was an act of care under the hardest conditions, honoring the relationship between a parent and child while protecting the children from further harm. Her family and community formed a protective ring around her and the girls. A godmother figure, Irene/Stacy Crowell, knew Aisha's fears. Aisha had asked that if the worst happened, her daughters be cared for by the Crowells. It was a plan she never wanted executed, but it was also evidence of clear-eyed courage. She recognized the danger, sought a protective order, complied with legal custody exchanges in controlled locations, and built a safety net for her children. Shaker Heights is a place that prides itself on its schools and progressive values. After Aisha's death, the school shut down for days to grieve. Vigils gathered hundreds. Colleagues said walking past her classroom felt like walking past a wound. Behind the public image of an accomplished couple was a long descent, well-documented, brutal, and ignored by institutions that should have protected her. Aisha married Lance T. Mason, a man with elite credentials, Harvard-educated, state legislator, assistant prosecutor, later a judge on the Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas. On paper, They were an emblem of achievement. Two professionals raising daughters in an affluent suburb. The turning point became public on August 2nd, 2014. After a family function, Mason brutally assaulted Aisha in front of their children. He repeatedly punched her more than 20 times, slammed her head into the car dashboard, and bit her face. Her skull and orbital bone were fractured. She required reconstructive surgery. The children screamed from the back seat. Police later found an arsenal at Mason's home. Rifles, grenades, and ammunition, signaling capacity for escalation. Aisha filed charges. Mason was arrested on felonious assault, kidnapping, and domestic violence. In 2015, he pleaded guilty to reduced counts of felonious assault and domestic violence. He was sentenced to 2 years and served 9 months. Aisha did what survivors are told to do. She obtained a protective order. She structured contact so her daughters could still see their father under controlled conditions. She complied with court directives and conducted custody exchanges in daylight at a residence used specifically for handoffs, Mason's house on Chagrin Boulevard, occupied by his sister Lynn for this purpose. Aisha's actions were acts of courage and discipline, not just paperwork. They were her best use of the tools the system offered. Then came another institutional decision that spoke volumes about value and risk. In 2017, despite his public record of violence, Mason was hired by Cleveland's city government as Minority Business Development Administrator. It was read by many as official forgiveness for a well-connected man. To Aisha and those who loved her, it felt like the system putting status over safety. The protections, the planning, the daylight, the control location. None of it stopped what happened next. The failures, when laid out, are staggering. A near-lethal 2014 assault with children as witnesses. Response: a 2-year sentence, reduced and served in 9 months. Weapons and explosives found in his home. Response: no lasting supervision or monitoring. Public rehiring in 2017 despite his violent record. Response: career restoration instead of permanent restriction. Active protection order, structured exchanges, daylight hours. Response: no enforcement or meaningful risk assessment to prevent lethal violence. On the morning of November 17, 2018, Aisha drove to the Chagrin Boulevard residence used for custody exchanges. She parked her Audi SUV in the driveway and began unbuckling her daughters. According to her uncle, Mason had been waiting behind the house. He rushed forward and stabbed her repeatedly in the neck and torso, while the children screamed. Inside, Mason's sister Lynn heard the screams and called 911. In official audio later released, her words to dispatchers were stark. He stabbed her. He said she's dead. A child cried in the background. Responding officers arrived within minutes. They found Aisha mortally wounded in the driveway. Prosecutors would later describe the scene as among the most gruesome of their careers. Blood trails showed she had tried to move. She collapsed near the garage. She had planned to go to a teacher's meeting after the drop-off. Her phone held the recent messages coordinating the exchange. She had no expectation that this encounter would turn violent. As sirens approached, Mason tried to flee in Aisha's own Audi. He rammed a police cruiser, critically injuring Officer Adam Flint. Even after the crash, he resisted. Officers subdued him and recovered a bloodstained knife believed to be the murder weapon. Prosecutors later said this was not a spontaneous burst of emotion. According to Cuyahoga County Prosecutor Michael O'Malley, Mason was lying in wait and was out to murder her that day, regardless of the presence of his sister or his children. Investigators said the motive was rooted in revenge and control. After the divorce, after the protection order, after the exposure of his abuse, after the loss of career and status, he blamed her. The driveway ambush was not just an act of personal violence. It was the culmination of institutional decisions that underestimated lethality, minimized prior harm, and re-elevated a known violent offender from a driveway to a courtroom where connections couldn't shield him anymore.
Tonight, a former state lawmaker and judge, now a convicted murderer.
And prosecutors pledge no more breaks for Lance Mason.
I hope he sits there in a prison cell for the rest of his life, every minute of every day, thinking about what he has done to destroy his family.
Investigator Scott Knoll was in the courtroom today as Mason pleaded guilty to killing his ex-wife.
He is now live in our newsroom with the very latest.
Prosecutor Mike O'Malley called the crime barbaric. He says last November at the murder scene, he decided not to cut Lance Mason any breaks. Today, Mason walked into court and admitted what investigators have said for months. The former judge is a killer.
Within days, a grand jury indicted Mason on aggravated murder, felonious assault, grand theft, and violation of a protective order. Because he had served alongside them, every Cuyahoga County judge recused, and Judge John Haas from Stark County was appointed. In 2019, Mason pleaded guilty to all charges to spare his daughter from testifying. He told the court there was no way he would let her take the stand. Observers viewed the plea as self-serving rather than remorseful. On September 12, 2019, he was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 35 years, with additional concurrent time for the injured officer and the order violations. The judge called the crime barbaric beyond comprehension. Shaker Heights and Cleveland mourned. Woodbury Elementary closed for days. Vigils filled streets. Teachers described walking past her classroom as walking through a wound. Family and friends followed Aisha's plan for her daughters. The Crowells took the children in, exactly as Aisha had arranged to protect them if the worst happened. Public outrage focused on the 2017 rehiring and on the 9-month time served. The question was simple. How did a man with a documented near-lethal assault record return to public authority in proximity to a woman he had already almost killed? That outrage helped shape reform. Ohio lawmakers proposed House Bill 3, informally Aisha's Law, which mandates risk assessment tools for officers responding to domestic disputes, prioritizes protective custody for high-risk survivors, and expands the definition of domestic violence to include coercive control and pattern behavior.
My daughter had this deep fear that he was going to kill her.
Nearly 6 years after her public murder, Aisha's mother says she is still waiting for the right lessons to be learned.
Mother saves everything. She just had that loving personality and always thought on the positive side. You know, she was a blessing.
Millicent Fraser's life changed on November 17, 2018.
It's never been the same. I just had to pick up the pieces.
That's the day her daughter and beloved Woodbury Elementary school teacher, Aisha Fraser, was murdered by her ex-husband.
The judge should have never let him out after 7 or 8 months because he never even conformed when he was in jail.
As of 2025, the case continues to influence how states rethink risk screening, enforcement, and supervised exchanges. What state or country are you watching from? And do your police offer supervised exchange locations? Comment with resources near you so others can find help. The thematic message, accountability over privilege. Aisha's case shows how leniency for a well-connected offender can manufacture lethal opportunities. Paper protections must be matched by risk-based enforcement. Survivors' courage must be met by systemic competence. Communities are not bystanders. They are part of the protection network. If Aisha's story moves you, share this episode so her name stays tied to reform. Subscribe to the Crime Anatomy. We document the failures and the fixes, and we fight for the lessons that save lives. Aisha Lorraine Fraser was a mother and a teacher who filled a room with hope. She followed the steps the system gave her. Report, protect, plan, comply. The system owed her more than a paper promise. Her legacy is the demand that we never again pretend privilege equals rehabilitation, or that daylight equals safety, or that a title equals trust. Justice in a courtroom is not the end. It's the minimum. The real measure is whether the next Aisha is protected before a driveway becomes a crime scene. Tell us in the comments what concrete changes your city has for high-risk domestic violence cases. Risk assessments, supervised exchanges, or DV advocacy units. Your comment could be the link someone needs tonight. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and keep the pressure on the systems that are supposed to protect us.